So I listened to the hearing today in the appeals court where Trump's attorney was trying to do this argument regarding presidential immunity. One of his fundamental arguments was that in order for you to prosecute a former president, somehow it's required that procedurally that the president be impeached first. Without the impeachment, you cannot prosecute a former president, right? So he's not saying, and then the judge actually brought this up, is that you're sort of hurting your core argument. The core argument initially was that a president has absolute immunity, cannot prosecute a former president. But now he changed it up and he's saying that the president can be prosecuted, but you have to follow the procedures. Procedures requires impeachment. So if I were one of the judges in this particular case, hearing that questionable argument, this would be my response. If you're asserting that the only way to prosecute a former president is to first impeach them, then you're suggesting setting up precedent for a scenario where a president, like how we have this lame duck situation, there would be a reverse scenario, a wild card, a boss mode scenario where an impeachment is a procedure, it's a protocol. There are steps involved in the impeachment, and therefore it takes time. And if you're saying you can only potentially charge a president post-impeachment, then you're creating a wild card time, a window in time, where you're essentially incentivizing a president to be lawless to the maximum degree. Here's what I mean. Let's just say, for example, an impeachment process is going to take at least a month, a minimum of a month for all the steps you have to go through. Then that means 29 days away from the end of your presidency. So it's the end of your presidency. You're not being reelected. You're leaving office. 29 days before the end of that final month in office, you are essentially in boss mode. You're above the law. You can do whatever you want to do because there's not enough time to do an impeachment. All you have to do is wait until the last minute to do the most crazy thing that you want to do, such that there is not enough time to get impeached, such that you can leave office without being impeached, and therefore, there's nothing they can do. So let's say, for example, I'm a president, this is my final term, and it is 29 days away from my final day in office. For the next 29 days, I'm above the law. I can do whatever I want to do because it's impossible for you to be able to impeach me in time before the end of my term. So you start the impeachment proceedings, but I'm out of office before you're done. Therefore, you can't impeach me. You can't impeach me after I've left office. So therefore, there's no impeachment. Therefore, you can't later come and charge me. So the 29th day, I can order, the military to kill my political opponent. You name it. If I'm a Democrat president, I can, illegally put an order to the military to go confiscate the guns of all Americans. You name it. I can do whatever I want to do. Whatever the most scary thing is that you can think of that for a president to do, I can do it and I don't have to hide it. I don't have to be secretive. I don't have to be clever. I don't have to be creative. I can just boldly do it out in the open because I can't be, if you need to impeach me to prosecute me and there's not enough time to impeach me, there's nothing you can do. This is hugely, hugely problematic. We would never want to see a Democrat president having this kind of above the law power. We would never want to see an above the law Republican, right? We never want to see a Republican above the law in this way. That this is dangerous. It's bad enough that even with we have certain rules and regulations that they get disregarded. So even with the restrictions, presidents will circumvent the law and do their own thing. And now you're talking about officially formalizing an above the law doctrine. Wow. Because a lot of stuff that the presidents do that circumvents the law, it's kind of secretive, like we may not know about it, or there's propaganda and they play games. Oh, it's not what it looks like, right? It's not exactly what it looks like, right? It looks like something, but it's not that. It's something else, right? So all these little games, muddy the water, whatever, and that's how you can get away with violating the laws. But with what President Trump's attorneys are arguing, they're trying to set up a scenario where you wouldn't need to do any of that stuff. Just do it out in the open. Say you're going to do it. Starting tomorrow, I've ordered the military to confiscate all guns. Right? Oh, President, you can't just do that. You're not allowed to do that. What you going to do about it? I have immunity. If you got a problem with that, go ahead and impeach me. Let's see you get that impeachment done in 29 days. Good luck with that one. And obviously, the closer you get to the end of your term, the more dangerous things get. Because in theory, they could do like an emergency impeachment. If whatever you did is bad enough and there can be enough support in the government, they could probably fast track it. But there's no way you could do an impeachment in like a day or two. The reality is, thanks to Trump, I feel we've lost impeachment as an effective tool. Prior to Trump, impeachment was something serious, something that we could use to, deal with a president that's out of control. But one of the things that Trump does is he just destroys a lot of the systems that we have in place to avoid corruption, the constraints that we have so that a president is not a king. He keeps breaking down those walls, which allows for a future president, Democrat or Republican, to do some really, really bad things and get away with it because the mechanisms that would stop a president from doing certain things were removed by Trump. So in terms of an impeachment, it's not just Trump, it's Trump and the Republican Party. Thanks to the Republican Party, they set a precedent that impeachments, they're nothing, right? A president can do just about whatever he wants to do, and the party that is on that president's side can just be like, we don't think it's impeachable, and make all kinds of arguments and just refuse to impeach him. The fact that they were able to do what they did, they set the precedent for the future. So in the future, let's say a Democratic president, does something really bad, how are we going to impeach him, right? They're going to be able to do the same thing they did with Trump, and anyone that challenges it, they'll say, hey, Trump, they were able to do this with Trump, with the Trump impeachment. They made a decision that they're not going to impeach him, and they didn't. We're doing the same thing, right? The Democrats can do the same thing and say the Republicans did it, so now we did it, right? Prior to Trump, this would have not been a thing. No one would have thought you could do something like that and get away with it. But under the Trump presidency, he established a system of just like, do whatever. Do what you like, with who you like, the Humpty Dance. He just keeps breaking his stuff down. And post-Trump, our country is far more vulnerable than it was before. He exposed a lot of vulnerabilities, which our inept Congress, they don't really do enough to close these things. And he exposed to the world that, hey, there are these vulnerabilities. So somebody really corrupt, really evil, sees that, hey, I can do all these things. Prior to him, they would not have dared to do certain things because they're afraid of prosecution and blah, blah, blah. But Trump showed them the way that you can do whatever you want and get away with it, which he's really opening up Pandora's box for some really, really bad people in the future, doing some really, really bad things to this country.